You're listening to Who's Hot, the UK OCR podcast where Wil Chung, along with elite racers Becky, Neal, Chris Shipley, and the occasional special guest, discuss the UK OCR series and other important races in the OCR calendar to find out who's hot.
Love it.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the latest UK OCR Who's Hot podcast. This is a bonus episode. My name is Wil Chung. I am the host, and I am here, not as always, with just one of my elite racer hosts, Chris Shipley. Chris, hi.
We've been left alone, Will. We can do what we want. We've got control.
Really, it might be a bit like when you and Mark took over the episode at that time a few years ago.
See, we can do exactly what we want. There's no one to give us that eye when we say something silly or that might be a little bit rude or something.
Or something that's not quite sciencey, right?
No, I'm the science one.
Oh,
Becky's my assistant, my lab assistant.
You'd definitely be getting the eye if she was on right now. So we don't have Becky, but we do have a special guest. We've got Dave Peters from Rumble Fitness. Hi, Dave. How are you doing?
All right, I'm really good, thank you. Thanks for bringing me on again. Always enjoy it.
Hey, absolutely no problem. We thankful that you're able to join us and spare the time. We're here to talk about OCR Games into its third edition, and we're talking about the OCR Games, which is Sunday the 21st over at Rumble Fitness in Sanborn. Unfortunately, tickets are sold out, but there's probably a chance you can go on the waiting list. So I would jump on Facebook or Instagram and speak to the guys at Rumble Fitness, get on that waiting list, and hopefully you'll get a ticket for next Sunday. But jump on there quick because tickets already sold out. Dave, let's talk about your baby OCR Games. Tell the listeners who may not know anything about OCR Games, what's it all about?
So effectively we've looked at OCR and we've kind of separated all of the key areas of it. So we've taken the technical endurance, the strength aspect, and then also this sort of speed and athletic element, if you like. And what the concept is that you'll go through 4 events through the day, each on one of those areas. You earn points towards a total, and then that total effectively converts later on towards your head start in a race. So it's effectively almost in the sense that the start to finish is handicapped. Whoever has the biggest total gets the head start, and then so on and so on down the leaderboard. So points convert to seconds. So anyone can win. It's still down to the race at the end of the day. But it's a case of earning as many points as you can to give yourself as best a head start as possible on the other competitors.
And it's really good because it, like the UK OCR series, it's about getting the best racer. This is almost breaking down all of those separate elements of what a great obstacle racer is and kind of breaking it down and then putting it all back together at the end. Chris, I know you've been a couple of times, you're a Rumble racer as well. You know, how's it been for you? What makes Rumble what makes OCR Games so special?
It's like you said, Will. I mean, this is a competition that sort of takes every aspect of obstacle racing and puts separate events apart, so you can literally compete in every different sort of discipline that OCR has and put it together at a final race. So it is literally just taking every aspect that you can have, or literally, I'll tell you what we'll say attribute points, because it brings it back down to our little homies then, doesn't it? So all your little attributes you can actually use in every single round to put down to a final race, and then it makes the OCR Games at the end. So you can really have a battle at the end, but really use those attribute points that you have for yourself to get yourself the points you need for the final battle.
So Dave, we talked about breaking it down. It's 4 separate activities or events as part of the games. So do you want to go through them, and then maybe if there's any hints, tips, or any kind of special giveaways you want to do as we go through those events?
Yeah, of course. So it starts with endurance event. So everybody starts with effectively we do a run. So the course is set out. There's a lapped course. We're talking around about half a mile per lap. There's some basic obstacles on the loop as well, really simple stuff, but just stuff that breaks your stride and breaks your rhythm of the running. And what happens is we'll take everybody out for some paced laps. So everybody gets at least a mile and a half under their legs before we start to look at the elimination. And what happens is we take the field. So if you took, for example, there's 26 men in the men's field. So we'll take them and we eliminate them 2s and 3s at a time each lap. After the
I love it.
1.5
I love
mile.
it, Dave. Sorry, I love it because it's a bit like what is it? Out on the velodrome, the Kieran and the Derny bike. So you're just kind of pacing people around first, and then then it sets off. I love that idea. Sorry, it just came to me.
No, I mean, our thing was that we knew that we had to have everyone out running. You know, if we started the elimination straight away, then it's kind of, if you knew that you were at the back of the field, then I could see people just trying to save energy and just go out early and just conserve the energy for later on. So we knew that we needed some way of control. So we needed to have everyone out at least for a little while on their legs. So the 2 or 3 laps that we run them beforehand, we keep it all really slow. We keep the pack together. It also, what I find with it is it builds the anticipation a little bit. And you can see some people get really nervous about it, I think, because they know that they're all waiting to go. Everyone's trying to work out who's going to push it, who's going to go out hot, who's going to stay back and just try and pick off one by one at the back of the field and just try and pip them to the line and stay in the running, you know. So each lap we eliminate 2 or 3 runners all the way down to the final 3, and then the final 3 go for a final lap head to head to find the podium positions in that event. That's as simple as you can explain it, really. So we'll have the women and the men field separate so that they don't clash too much. And it's devil takes the hindmost effectively.
Brilliant. So that's endurance. Then what are the next 3 events? Because I know you have to rotate people. What are the next events after that?
Yeah, so obviously, like you say, we round robin the next 3 events. So depending on the heat that they're in will depend on their order. But effectively, there's a strength event, there's an athletics event, and there is a technical event. So the technical event, we've decided this year, we're going to go back to our original format, which is the one we tried in our first year. We found that actually is probably the biggest technical test. It's a good grip endurance test as well. And I just like the format. So what everyone's going to do is you'll be setting your own heat. You'll be going off, it'll be set off as a head-to-head, but the head-to-head is really more just to keep your head in a racing game as opposed to worrying too much about the one other person, because obviously everybody is against all other heats as well. So you get 6 minutes. So we've increased it from the previous time we did it for 5 minutes before. So we've increased to 6 minutes this time. And it's 5 obstacles. And it's an accumulation for the first 5. So you would complete 1 obstacle, then go to the reset point, then 2, reset, then 3, reset, all the way up to 5. Once you've completed 5, you'll then continue for the remainder of time, building rounds of 5 all the way through. It's a single attempt on every obstacle. Anytime that they fail, they have to reset the round. So if they failed the 3rd obstacle, they would still have to go back to the beginning, start with obstacle 1, then obstacle 2, and then back to obstacle 3. What we've done is we've made the first 2 obstacles very doable. So every single person will be able to score, because obviously they'll be able to get through the first 2 obstacles pretty well. Obviously technique will help them get through it quicker, but it will allow everyone to do it. So even those that are still sort of learning on their obstacles, or maybe not so confident on their technical ability, then even if they couldn't do maybe the 4th or 5th rig, then they could still score points. So everyone will still be able to score. But obviously, if you can connect all 5 together and put them in rounds, then you're going to connect them because the obstacles are closer together. And the reset point this time is a lot further away than it was on our original round. Then you're going to be at an advantage to be piecing 5 obstacles together than you would be if you was to just do the 1 and 2 and then back to the start. So when we originally did it, we had about 10 meters away to obstacle 1. Now they've got to run about 100 meters before they get back to the reset. So it's quite a big reset. If people are failing on the obstacle 3, 4, and 5, it'd be quite punishing effectively for falling or failing rigs. So that's our technical event. Everyone will do that in 2s.
That sounds like a really awesome. I mean, I loved the first one that you did when you did that format. With the 100 meters as well, that obviously helps with the extra 6 minutes. But can you sort of tell us what the obstacles are actually going to be?
Yeah, we've been yeah, I can. So the first one is the first obstacle is a swing over. So it's a beam swing over, and then we're going with balance beam. So everybody should be able to do the first 2 one way or another, and then we're into a climb. Then we're into 2 different rigs. So obstacle 4 and 5 are 2 different rigs. One is short and one is long. So obstacle 5 is long. Obstacle 4 is short rig, and obstacle 3 is a climb of sorts.
Right.
I will be putting the videos out this week though, so everybody will see before they get to centre.
I mean, we know what Rumble are like, and I'm going to assume you can say or not say, but I'm going to imagine there's going to be some ropes involved.
Yeah.
He's turned his camera off, so I can't get the eyes in. So I'm hoping they're going to be quite technical, but then very doable. So I'm quite looking forward to this, Dave. Yeah,
nice. No, for sure. Obstacle 5 is obviously the hardest one because of the length of the rig, and also because of the mixture that we've put into this rig as well. I don't think anyone would have seen the rig like it because of the variation that we're putting in. But it is doable, but it will be a technical thing. So if your technique is good, you will find an advantage for sure. Because we've gone with the endurance element as well, we can't put a rig in which is too crazy difficult, because obviously as soon as you do that, it slows the technique, it slows the ability to actually put them together down. So we don't want to put it to a point where it's so, if you put in loads of nunchucks in, for example, it's going to take a lot of energy, and you're not going to be able to piece them together. And what we want to see is people going for the full 6 minutes, really piecing together obstacle after obstacle. So
using technique.
Exactly.
Love
it.
Yeah.
So that's how we sit with the technical event. Shall I go on to the others?
Yeah. Move on to we've got athletics or strength, haven't we?
Yeah, so we'll do strength first. So strength, we've in the past we've kind of tried 2 different things with strength. We did a long carry. We did a carry sort of medley, and then it was finished with a long carry. It was a half a mile carry, and it did benefit those that were strength athletes. But what we found was it was still too endurance based. It was still the runners that were going to benefit most from this. And what we really wanted to do was do more of a strength element. So last year we used a bit of maths and a bit of tactics with it, where we did an up and down the field with a carry, and then they used the multiplier. So however many rounds they got, they multiplied their hang time, and that's how they scored last time. What we've done this time is we've gone a bit more pure classic OCR, if you like, in the strength zone. So what's going to happen is men will carry 2 tires, women will carry 1, and they will carry it around the course which is set out in the field. And then at different points around the course, there's a different strength obstacle. So effectively, you'll carry down the field, you'll work onto a drag, you'll then pick your tires up, carry on down the field onto a rope pull, you'll then carry on to tire flips. So each point around this course, there's a different strength obstacle set out for you. And obviously you're carrying the tires on the round in and around the route as well. So quite heavy for men being 2. And then obviously for women as well, it's 1. No real reason for it other than I just want to see the pace similar. And I think that's the best way to get a balanced pace, really.
I like that. I really like that. That sounds like probably the best iteration of the strength that I think you've probably come up with.
Yeah.
It definitely seems like it's going to test every aspect of strength, but using that strength endurance during that section. So I'm quite interested to see how those times are going to vary between the different athletes. That should be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, it's little things like the addition of things like tire flips and dragging weight and rope pulling. It's going to test all parts of the body in terms of the strength elements as well. You've got hip chain stuff, you've got arm pulling, you've got full body weight that's going to help to some people and not for others. The lighter runners are going to struggle more on the drag and things like that. And then also you've got the obstacles on the course that you're carrying the tires across and with anyway. So it's gonna grind people down for sure. We're time capping it at 20 minutes, so that gives you some idea as to how long it's going to take a few people.
So that's going to be a good one for getting some points, and it's going to really make a interesting decision when we go for the athletes on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And then athletics. So athletics is our new version of our speed. We used to have speed as a category, and we decided to just adjust it slightly. So we've gone with an athletic approach rather than a pure speed. It's still obstacles, but this time it focuses more on vaults, on jumps, on control of your body as you move through obstacles. So there's nothing too crazy technical, but it's definitely the physical element, if you like, of obstacle racing. So if you're thinking of walls, if you're thinking of lots of ladder climbs, A-frames, that kind of thing. And then the speed element is still a big part of it. So there's still some running, there's still some ground to cover. But it's a case of looking at the athletic element of a OCR racer. There's also a couple of little surprises which are coming in that course as well. So it kind of rounds off anything that's been missing in the past. So I won't say whether it is or it isn't, but there's things like, for example, we have never done throws, spear throws and similar. We've never done that before. So we may throw some little bits and pieces in in like this as well. So
I know what a throw could be.
yeah.
I also will not say nothing.
We will see. We will see. But yeah, so we're looking at that athletic approach and speed again across the ground.
Brilliant. I love that idea. So, as you say, it's about controlling your body, but less technical. So not rigs, but over walls, possibly some climbs, possibly a throw. That's a great idea. Before we move on, it's really because it's a Rumble Fitness. You've obviously got Rumble races. I'm assuming you're ensuring that the actual Rumble races athletes that you've got aren't really at a full advantage. I'm sure you're kind of creating a course that they won't be allowed to play on for the next week or so.
Yeah, so I mean, home advantage exists, right? I've talked about this before. Everybody knows it, but yeah. So there's some new obstacles actually that we've built. The brand new obstacles which will come in first use for OCR games, so no one would have used them before. So that's the first thing. And they're quite tricky as well. So they do require a technique. So it's definitely, you'll find a lot of Rumble races still struggling, and then it'll be a case of us working on that after the event, you know. And yeah, like the course itself, nobody will run it other than me and the course testers. And yeah, the rig setups are completely stripped. There is no setup done. The setup isn't done until Friday, which is the day after our obstacle class. So they won't be at an advantage at all in terms of the setup or the different rigs that we're putting up either. So yeah, it's a competition at the end of the day. So whilst not everybody's there to sort of try and compete and win, it is a competition, and we do have to try and take it as seriously as possible in that sense. So yeah, for sure, we'll hold the rigs back.
So tell me about how the points are scored ready for that final race, event 5.
Yeah, so effectively it's like a reverse de-escalating table. So the person that scores the highest in each event will score 1 point. And you work it backwards, and so you're effectively looking to see the time gaps between people. So each event will carry its own, they'll have, so if the time associated, so say somebody wins by 20 seconds, it's not the seconds in that event that's going to matter, it's the placing that they finish. So if they finish first, that's where they'll get their score from that. If they then finish 5th, they'll get a designated score from that as well. So it's not necessarily the points that they score in the event that gives them any seconds lead, it's the placing that puts them into after each event. So it's done 1 to 26 for the men, 1 to 22 for the women, and then it's not the S-game, it's the other way around. So if you're first, you'll get 22 points. If you're second, then you'll be less. We actually give a bigger gap as well between the top 5. So the top 5 have a heavier weight in, and then it's smaller gaps down from 5th place onwards. So it's within everyone's interest to finish in those top 5 places because they score heavier. So that will allow them to increase the gap on people in terms of the conversion.
Wow.
And how does that?
Go on, Will.
It is. How does that translate into the final race? Then is it 1 point is 1 second?
1 for 2, so it's 2 seconds per point. So it can be quite big gaps. I think in last year, we had 20 seconds from first and second. And then again, it goes all the way down. I think what we do is we work it out so that it's capped at around 3 minutes, that you shouldn't have, if someone finished last in every event and someone finished first in every event, there would be about 3 to 4 minutes gap between their starting point. So we have to obviously manage that gap a little bit, because if it gets too excessive, you lose the race already. But you do want an advantage for the people that have scored heavily in those events. So you do want to reward the points in the events, but at the same time, you don't want to write someone completely off if they've finished maybe 8th, 9th, 10th. And in fact, we've seen podium finishes in previous OCR games, and people were in 8th, 9th and 10th position before they started the race. So you can make places up and really get yourself up onto that podium. But it's obviously just down to the work at the end of the day. And it's a long day as well.
Chris, sorry, I cut you off there.
Well, funny enough, you said exactly what I was going to say. So it's like we're in sync. Not the band.
Oh, gosh. Hopefully not. And so event 5 is the actual race. So tell me about that distance. What's in it? Is it elevation? Is it kind of muddy, or what's that race like?
It's pretty clean. It's not particularly muddy. This year we've even topped the field this year, so we haven't just cut tracks, we've actually cut the entire field, so we've topped the whole thing.
Have you made it very little rutted?
Yeah, we've had the rollers out, Chris. Yeah, you know how it is.
Just for me and everyone else who's got a bad ankle at the moment.
Yeah. Nah, do you know what? It's not too bad out there at the minute. I think where we've had the rain and we've had then the sun and then the rain and then the sun, it's actually helped it level it off a bit. The tractor was out the other day and the guys have been training on it and it's not too bad at all.
Just get Mo to roll over some of the divots a little bit for us.
Yeah.
I think he's the only one who could do it.
So yeah, no, it's pretty good out there. The course is effectively each of those zones added together. So they'll do one race with all of the previous events linked one point to the other. So what we try and do is we try and simplify the race as much as possible by showing the route already, in the sense that they've already done the route, because they've been on the strength element, they've been on the technical element, and they've been on. So we just combine the three together. We do put a couple of subtle changes in, but it's a case of follow the flags. It's all one line of flags. It's not hard. You can't go wrong really as long as you stay with the flag line. And yeah, it's all of the zones have already been ran a few times by each of the athletes because they've already gone out and done it. So we piece them all together and we come out with around about 4 miles of racing at the end of the day.
I really like that idea. It's like practice, and then boom, there's your race. Off you go. Chris, I've got loads of questions really about the racing, and I'm sure lots of people, especially those that haven't done it before. Tell me about tactics. Let's talk, because there are 4 different events. Everyone goes off in the first event, everyone goes off in the last event, but there's going to be some standing around and some waiting around as people are going on the head-to-head, for example, on the technical sections. So what tactics are there in terms of being able to rest, being able to refuel, and fueling at the right time? Because of course you don't want to be eating and then straight out there. So what happens there? How have you handled that in the past?
Yeah, so like you say, I can only speak for myself really, because every athlete has their own sort of way of dealing with things. But personally, when it's during the rounds and that, I like to bring a little chair for myself. So I've got somewhere to sit, somewhere to prepare, somewhere to stay out the way. We don't usually stay out the sun. For some reason, we always seem to stand in the sun and we all get burnt at Rumble games. I don't know why. It seems to be the sort of thing. But now I've said that, it'll probably rain, so we'll probably need an umbrella.
I was going to say, I think this year there's no chance of any sun this year. I think we've already written off the summer, haven't we?
Yeah, that's it. But like I say, you've got to treat this event as an endurance event, and that does mean that you need to prepare between the events to save energy and conserve energy, because it's going to be a long day, like Dave said, and you've got a long race at the end of the day. Even though it's only 4 miles, that's after every event that you had. It tolls up. And it's all about, in my opinion, it's all about just sort of keeping yourself on a nice, steady, level playing field, scoring the points on the ones that you can, and trying to stay where you can. I mean, I'm not a top guy scoring in every event highly. I'm scoring well in a few events. So to score well overall, I've got to try and do well overall and get the good points where I can. And that's what I'll try and do this year again. But it's difficult because slight things can happen and you can go wrong. Last year, I made a mistake on the event that I was going to do well at, the technical event, missed the bell. That cost a lot of time. So, you've got to make sure you do every round consistently and well, just to keep those points going, unless you're really, really good and you can just score brilliantly overall. But the competition is looking decent this year. So
we'll talk about the people in a minute. But that's kind of brought me to another question that has just come out off the top of my head. You talk about scoring consistently well. So do you push more in the event that you're probably better at, technical, for example, or do you kind of try and maybe pull back a little bit to conserve energy to maybe try and score better in the ones that maybe you're not so?
So that comes down to racer individuality, doesn't it? Because it all depends on the kind of race you are. Some people are quite go-getty, aren't they? Some people think, right, this is my event, I need to hit this hard. Otherwise, I'm not going to get the points. Whereas some other races are like, well, I'm going to do well in this event because that's how I am. So they're just going to try and fly through it, and their ability will get them the good points. But I mean, even with this event, Dave, you still got the Joker card. Is that right?
Yeah, and we've changed the Joker as well this year. So in previous years, we've had the Joker where you can play it on any event that you want to play it on, and it will double your points at the end of the event. So whatever placing you're in, it will double your points. However, this year, what we're doing is you can still do that, but we're also allowing people to play their Joker on somebody else. So everybody will play their Joker before the start of the day. So before anyone's gone, before anyone started, and then you'll play the Joker either on yourself, or if you believe that somebody is going to win that event, So if I think Chris is going to win technical and I choose that he's better than me, I'm going to play my card on Chris so that I score Chris's points on top of my own. So this year there's a little bit extra in the tactics that actually, if you think that someone can nail an event, then you can play the card on them. But obviously you're not in any guarantee that they're going to do it, and it takes it out of your own hands in terms of whether they're going to score. I thought about this long and hard about how we were going to adjust it, and I thought, if people know they're having a card played on them, then they'll just sit back and sandbag a little bit. But then obviously if they sandbag, they're affecting their own score. So they're going to end up with a smaller score themselves, and so they're going to punish themselves. The fact that everybody plays it at the beginning of the day as well, you'll play it blind. So nobody will know who played it on who. So it will be a bit of a ballot almost in terms of who's playing it for where. So if you back yourself, then you can still play it on yourself. But if you don't, then you can score someone else's points on top of your own.
And that makes this such a technical race now. Like people are going to be thinking so strategic. Just for the record, so everyone knows, I am feeling in the peak physical fit, and I am so good at obstacles at the moment. It's unbelievable. So
that's such an interesting take. Now that changes quite a lot of the tactics, isn't it? If maybe you want to put all your points on Chris. Because
I think everyone should put all their points on me for especially technical. But it's really good. Do we get to find out who put their jokers on who at the end of the day?
Yeah, so afterwards, I don't mind. Afterwards, we'll release it, and it'll be interesting, won't it? We can even pull out some stats and see who actually benefited from it and who lost out and stuff.
I think that adds a bit of balance to it. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
We'll get that out.
I absolutely love that. So, because you was also just early on, I just want to pull this back before we'll talk about the participants. Endurance, because this is a long event. It's what six-ish hours altogether. And I'm sure I remember as well. After the first OCR games, people were talking about how they wasted a lot of energy by cheering other people on in other heats or things going on, where actually maybe you just need to kind of take a minute and relax, use your chair. But 6 hours is a long time. It is a proper endurance event. It's not just 4 races. It's like proper what you have to do in between. And there's a lot of rumble races there, and I'm sure you would want to cheer on your own teammates, or if you're Nuclear Phoenix or whatever. But actually, sometimes you got to think about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's no surprise to me that the previous podium winners have all had good endurance bases. Like, it's not always necessarily the quickest and the fastest racers who do well at the OCR games. Like, you have to be technically gifted. You have to be able to hold your own in that strength zone, but you also need to be able to cover the ground for a long period of time. If you put it in perspective, the men's race last year in the endurance event went over 6 miles in the endurance event alone. So before they got to the 4-mile race at the end of the day, they'd already done 10K in that one event. Plus then they had to do the strength and the speed events, which were out on the field. So you're already talking about starting a race with 7 or 8 miles in your legs. So if you're gonna go out hard in some of these events, you really do need to focus on your recovery in between, and also in fueling, hydration. It all comes down to those things. And rest. Rest when you can. For me personally, it's a case of, if I was in there, it would be little and often with the fuel, regular with the hydration, and rest in between events. Because like you say, if you're out watching everybody else and supporting everyone else, that's great. But it's almost like there's a nervousness about them sometimes, about the athletes who they're so keen to see what's going on, especially in heat 2, because everyone does their first heat, and then they're all asking questions about, well, how did you get on in your first one? What was your first one? Then they want to see it, and they want to know, how was that? What was it like? And there's almost like a nervousness about the athletes. So they end up on their feet, they end up walking up and down. And I bet if you clocked all of the miles that you did over the day, you easily go over the half marathon mark without a doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the heats now, and we'll talk specifically, I guess, about watching other people, because you split all the competitors into 3 different heats to do the different rounds as they're rotating. But you've mixed them all up as well. So, for example, Chris is in with Das Dassos and Alex, for example. Also, Pit Rainbow's in there, Becky, Neal, and I see Nkan's in there in Heat B. But then you've got Heat A, where you might be going against, for example, Dan Martin, Mo Maxwell, Jason Molan in there. You've got and Shirley Tompkins, Andrea Berquez, and Charlotte Dehaney. And then in this Heat C, you've got like the likes of Lou Ferriman, Jack Carpenter, Libby Joyce, and Russell Walsh. So you've kind of got all your who would be your competitors, not necessarily in your heat, they're in other heats. And you don't necessarily know what points they're getting. And also, should they score higher in that heat, or maybe actually as an attribute point, Chris, that they're better in that particular heat. And so there's so many tactics and things going on whilst you're trying to take care of things in your own heat, but almost keeping an eye on other people in other heats, but going, well, actually, Mo's not quite so good at strength, for example. So, of course, he's going to score lower, or go, oh, shit, Mo scored loads of points in strength, and I didn't think he was going to score as many points in that one. Chris, again, how did you handle that? Because even me, not even participating, this is already mindful.
Yeah, like last year, you do keep an eye on things. This year, I'm forgetting that anyone else is there on every event that happens prior to that final race. No one's around. You're only racing yourself until that final race, because it's an accumulation of points. So until that final race, it doesn't matter what everyone else is getting. It doesn't matter how many points has been scored with the people in your group. You use the people in your group to push you faster and get you the best result you can get for yourself. But racing anyone in those other heats, apart from the endurance one at the beginning, forget them. Personally, everyone else has got different things. They might want to use those people in their groups to get themselves faster, but personally, nah, not at the moment.
It's definitely right. I mean, that's kind of how we put the heats together. You know, like generally speaking, we know the majority of people that come and take part in it, so it allows me to kind of, I wouldn't say seed it as such, but you have an idea as to where people are usually at, you know, compared with the UK OCR series and the championship races. So you can create a good heat where you can get a real mixture of ability. And what I want to do is I want to allow a good balance. I don't want to throw everyone in one heat, you know, and then tell everybody, right, you're all there straight away. I want that a little bit of jeopardy for some people, because like you say, Chris, some people will need to see it and need it to gauge and carry them forward, and other people will just be happy doing their own thing. So that's why what I try and do is I try and balance them heats out a little bit, give everyone someone who's going to help pull them along in some of the events, so that you don't find yourself almost taking a foot off the pedal too much, but at the same time spread them over the heats so that actually you don't really know what's going on. And to be honest, that's probably the best way.
Yeah, you're no fool, Dave. You're no fool.
No. Just spent too much time looking at it.
3 years on, 4 years on. What is it?
Yeah.
3 now? 3.
3. Yeah, this is the third one. Yeah, we did have a pilot event, but yeah, this is the third OCR game.
Let's talk about the people now, because very much like when we previewed, Chris, the British champs. This is really a massive who's who. And in every single heat, you've got people to look out for. And then, of course, as we was mentioning, I'm sure once you're in those heats, there's the nervousness and everything else that you'll be watching other people, whether you kind of want to or not. I know in your head, you want to be, this is my only race and I am in my own race. But I know you'll be seeing what Darren and Mo are going to be doing at the very least. And your nemesis, Russell Walsh, right?
Oh, yeah, they're all going to be there. It's really hard to like know who's going to be doing what and doing where. I completely forgot the question you was asking me, actually, to be honest with you.
Oh, so
I was looking at all the names.
Let's go through. Yeah, let's look at the names, and I guess just let's call out a few of the names that are probably the ones to watch. We're not talking about who's hot. We're like the ones to watch. Whichever way you want to go, really.
Dave, I know there was a couple of guys from Europe coming over. I know one of them's not going to make it, Lenny, but I know that there's a guy from Sweden coming over. Is it Johan Lobemera? Or
Yeah.
I don't know anything about him. So do you know anything about him too much? You must have conversed with him at some point about the race.
Yeah, we've had a chat. I mean, it's his passion. OCR's his passion. It's what he does. By his own words, it's to escape everything else. So it's definitely his passion.
He'll fit in well.
Yeah, exactly. He's in the right crowd, right? I don't know too much about his racing, but I know he does a lot of obstacles. He does a lot of European races, so he's bound to be up on his technical elements. I don't know how he is in terms of his speed, but I know for sure that he's very experienced and he loves to do OCR. So the fact that he's here doing it tells you that he's clearly interested, you know.
Yeah, good. Nice.
So,
And,
Len is in Heat A. We've got Mo already. Mo and Darren we've already mentioned. Who else in Heat A should we be looking out for, Chris?
Oh, I ain't even looking at Heat A. I've just got a list of names, Will. But I tell you, if we're going to be looking out for anyone, I think the real key figures to be looking out for. Obviously, you're going to have Finley Greenleaf. You're going to have Oliver Addy's going to be one to watch out for, especially in the technical sections, the speed sections. You're going to see him lose some points in the strength sections because obviously his age and his weight class. But then when it comes to the overall race, you might see him do really well because he's accumulated those points overall in the day. So that should or may give him the sort of the edge that he needs to keep ahead. Alex Young, he's going to be an exceptional one to watch because of the year he's had. He's always going to be good at scoring points all round. So he should keep a good thing. And I think Zach Harper's actually got a really good chance. He's been training so well at the moment. His running's good. He's going to lose a few points like the other athletes are going to do in some of the other, like in the different events. But overall, I think he'll score well. And I think he's got good ability to score well at the end of the race. So in the men's, it's going to be a good one. And then obviously you've got the normal faces like Morgan Das, Connor, Jack Carpenter, Darren Martin. All these people are going to be really, really fighting for top spots. And Tommy Matthews as well. So it's a stacked field on the men's side. Have I lost you guys?
No.
All right.
We're just listening in full flow, Chris. Full flow.
That's all right. It's because I had you on a different screen. I thought you all went silent.
Dave, from your side, who are the ones watching? Because obviously you've put these heats together. You've split them in whatever way form you wanted to split them. So surely there's a few names, maybe some dark horses that you might want to shout out as well. That may be the ones to watch.
Yeah, I think there really is as well. Like you can look all the way through. It's quite deep. I think you can take your podium from anywhere from 15 guys. Like I'm not even lying. You know, there's a real depth to the field. But there's some names on these lists which I'm really excited to see how they get on at the end of the day. So James Taylor Medhurst, for example. So he was here last year with Enduro. So if anybody isn't aware of his name, he is Mr. Enduro. So he's taking part this year. Now James is a really fit guy. He recently won Nuclear Fit. They went to the World Championships for High Rocks World Championships. He's a really fit guy, and he's obviously into his endurance event as well. So he's going to have the legs to carry himself through for the entire day. I think he's going to be coming across some new technical stuff. He's more of a Spartan racer when he's done obstacle racing in the past, but you know, he's also quite quick learning. And I think the fact that you go through that technical event and you do so many rounds on that technical event, when you come to the race, you're going to be really prepared for those rigs. You're going to know what to come up against. So I feel like I think it could be a dark horse in terms of where his endurance can carry him through. You've got people on the list there like Tony Leary. He's so technically gifted, and we know that he's going to have the endurance to be able to keep going as well. Like he's the sort of person that's just going to creep up through the field that they're going to sleep on him, you know, and he's not going to fail that many obstacles. He's a really good guy. He trains at Rumble reasonably regularly now as well, so it's not going to have the shock factor in terms of how our obstacles are set up or the gaps in the rigs and stuff. He's going to be familiar with that sort of stuff. So I think you'd be silly to rule him out. And then like you've got the obvious names there, but there's a few little sort of David Tucker always gets like scores well and always places well because he's just that he is what Chris was saying earlier. He's Mr. Consistent. He's going to hit the top 5, top 6 every single event. And then come the race again, he's going to be another one that people will be sleeping on. They won't know him. He's reasonably unknown in obstacle racing unless you're at Rumble. So he's gonna be there. And I think Chris is right. I think you've got the likes of Zach. I think Alex Young's having a really good season. Even Ramunis as well is having a really good season as well. So, you know, these guys are really going to come through. And I think people like Matt Roberts have always got that endurance in them, you know. So you just don't know how it's going to pan out. I think the events are really going to make a difference this year. There's also like, there's some names from Heat A, like Johnny Hunter.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Johnny's doing really well. He's really sort of taken OCR. He's moved across from the injury. He's got his legs back under him. You know, Jason Morland's running well at the moment. So there's a few there that maybe, you know, we'd sit in the mid pack normally that could easily step into the top pack as the event goes on through the day. And that's obviously just talking about the men's at the minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. We just to talk about last year's winner. So Das won last year, followed by Mo, and then Gavin Hogarth. Gavin's not with us. Das is back in there. Das has just been absolutely going from strength to strength this year. So that's really going to be interesting. Mo is of course going to be up there. I think Russell Walsh, again, we seem to mention Russell Walsh so much this year, but he's really going from strength to strength to get up there as well. So I think it's really interesting. As you said, Chris, Finley, I think he's as we said in the Rude Rampage episode, he's just grown into the strength, and I think this is where he can kind of grow. And I think the bits of rest in between will probably help him ready for that 4 mile race. So I think he's going to have a really good showing as well. But going on to the females, last year's winners, Imi Hales, who isn't able to join us this year, Lou Pheromone and Tamar Barkley. So, Chris, what are your thoughts about the women's field?
Women's field's the same as well. It's stacked again. You got the usual faces like Tamar, Charlotte, Julie, Emma. You got Helen, Libby. I'm not sure who Valentina Ferrari is.
Yeah, she's one of ours. She trains every week.
I should know who she is then.
Wow,
my God, Chris! She's a fellow Rumble racer, Chris. How do you not know her?
To be fair, she's a midweek trainer, so we can let Chris off for his weekend training. It's fine. Valentina. So Valentina's it's her first time doing OCR games. She's an age group athlete, but she's very gifted. Sometimes it's her confidence that maybe holds her back. But she's very talented, and in the age group in particular, she has a lot of potential to go quite far with it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I like about the start list is you've actually got such an amount of Rumble races down here. So you have got Shyla, you've got Louise, you got Pip, you've got a real strong concession of actual Rumble races, which should give the skill base to them. So Rumble should do well, but then every single girl here comes down Rumble a lot. I mean, Everyone trains down there a lot. So everyone's got skills there. You got Andrea Burquez coming down. Now that's going to be one to watch. Now she is probably the fastest female we got on this list, but we all know that she doesn't like technical races. So this is going to be really interesting because the technical aspects are split. So it's going to be really interesting to see her perform doing the things that she's good at, like the endurance, the speed, the athletics, might I say, the carries, and then having her week event, but seeing how well that can actually keep her going for a top spot, because she's definitely going to be fighting for a top spot.
But again, you've got this Joker player, so she might put her Joker on someone that is going to be good at the technical, and therefore the points that she's going to score is almost it's moot then. So the more we think about this, Dave, this Joker card is fantastic. I think the other person to look out for is Libby, because again, I think very much like Finley, they're a little bit of rest. And to be fair to Libby, she's more of an endurance runner anyway. She likes the beast, she likes the ultra. But I think those little bits of rest in between will really help her go forward in that 4 mile final race.
Libby 2 years ago was a podium on OCR Games. She podiumed 2 years ago, and 2 years of training, 2 years of extra endurance, 2 years of more experience, that is going to pay off. And she's been running well, right? She had a good result in Spartan recently. Yep. She's always good with the technical elements. And this technical element as well is not like last year was like 100-meter pure speed. This year, it's about accumulation of obstacles, and Libby will just keep going and going and going. And we know that she's got the technical ability, so she's going to score well for sure.
Just trying to think who else is going to be smashing it. And the thing is, everyone here can just do well at individual events. So it's going to be really interesting to see where their weaknesses are rather than their strengths. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, all the way through the list, you've got Josie on there, you got Libby on there, Louise is on there. You go for, I'm just picking through the heats as we go. Becky's had a resurgence recently. Becky's been coming back to life a little bit. So there's all these extra points available, and with like you say, with the Joker the way that it is, it really can just fill the void. Cheryl Beach has been running really well.
She's been running super well.
So it will be interesting to see how it pans out, and how the gaps are kind of made up with the Joker card as well, and if they're played well. if they're used well. It'd be interesting who backs himself as well, as opposed to sort of putting it on somebody.
I know there's some confident ladies on this list, and
Yeah.
I've got a feeling some of them will back themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to, man. You have to. But again, it's the endurance. You know that endurance is going to be there. For me, I think Tamar is going to have a really good chance this year. She podiumed last year. I think
you saw her at the 3K down at this race, at the 3K at Rumble this year.
Yep.
And how that panned out. I mean, this sort of, when it comes down to a sort of technical race where you've got to use a lot of strength, she really does come into her own. She has got a good base of strength, and cutting through obstacles, she's probably one of the best obstaclers in the country at the moment. And to have an obstacle race where it's quite dense and quite a lot going on, it really sort of shows her skill set, and it will put her higher against some people that will have, say, a much faster speed than her.
I think the time trial will do her good in terms of confidence at Rumble as well. Like most people know, Rumble's pretty technical. We do a lot of technical challenges in and amongst the rigs, and we do things slightly differently to where you might find them on races as well. So it can be a bit daunting when you first come, but Tamar's been enough times now, and she's had good performances as well, that actually she's going to have confidence from that, because, I think she won the 3K. She's placed well at OCR games before, and we know that she's doing well this year, and she's running well as well, and I feel like the gap is closing. I don't feel like she is as far behind as she maybe was a couple of years ago. So I think she's got a great chance.
Even with the likes of Emma Kirkwood, this sort of event shines for her as well. She's got good legs, she's got good obstacle ability as well. So she's going to be right up there in the mix. Little pocket racer, just showing everyone that she's sort of there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then you can't sleep on some of the Rumble girls. There's a few names on that list who are there on a Thursday night. They train regularly, and they're new to races, and they're new to OCR games in particular, but they're not new to Rumble, and that always pays off. We talk about like Das's endurance and Das's ability. Das has trained at Rumble a lot, so he knows Rumble. He's come to a lot of time trials. He's done a lot of events with us. He's trained up here, so he knows it well as well. So being on the ground really pays off. It does make a difference to your racing, and we all know it from everywhere. How many people go to a European champs or a world champs and do the 3K because they know that the Saturday's better because they've been around that course already.
Yeah,
and it's going to pay off that way. With us, obviously the new obstacles that we're putting in, maybe not so much, but again, they're going to know their way around with regards to the grounding and the way that we do things.
Brilliant. So just before we finish off, Chris, I'm going to come to you in a second to ask about any final tips as a racer. But Dave, any final tips for the racers as a race director? Eat, rest, drink. Use the facilities. We've actually mixed up our parking this year, and this will all go out on emails to all the athletes anyway, but our parking this year is actually at the local school just around the corner. It's about a 2-minute walk away. And what that's allowing us to do is actually set up a specific event village in our normal car park, which allows us a lot more space for those guys to sort of relax, sit back. So bring a chair, find some space, get under some shelter, get away from the sun if it is there, get away from the rain if it is there, and just make sure that you are resting and refueling in between your events. Don't get too excited to go between watching everybody's events or watching everything that's going on. Focus on yourself and put your race later on in the day as a priority. And with endurance event, go out to the endurance event with a plan and know what you're going to do and stick to it. If you're going to go out hot and try and win it, if you're going to push the pace to try and drag people with you, then commit to doing it and get it done early. Try and break the field. But if you're going to try and reserve some energy, then you've got to know where you're aiming for in terms of a finishing position and try and stick to that strategy. I've seen it work both ways. And really interestingly, last year, I think Morgan pushed it out. He wanted the big event. He wanted the win. And Das previous year pushed it out. The previous year, Das finished I think he finished third, didn't win. Morgan won. Morgan sat back. And then last year, Morgan pushed and Das sat back and Das won. So it might not always be in your interest to try and win that endurance event, but you do need to place highly if you want to compete at the end. So you really have to pick your battles and back yourself where you know that you've got a good chance of scoring. I think that's where I would say as a race director's point of view.
Yeah.
Chris, I think Dave's taken all the tips and probably any of the tips that you were about to say, but any tips as a past participant?
Nah, I just totally agree with Dave there, because I mean, we should all know where we are at this time of the year. We've all raced. Well, we're in the middle part of the year. We all know where we're at. We all know what our fitness levels are at. We all know where we should be racing at. We should be able to judge what we're capable of at this moment in time, and just believe in yourself and believe what you can do. But top tip number one is, when you get there, give me lots of stuff. Get me drinks, get me water, get me some food, look after my ankle, give me a leg rub, keep the sun off me, some sun cream. Top tip number one.
And is that it? Just the top
That's it. That's top number one.
It sounded like you was going to carry on. Thank you.
That's all you need.
Brilliant, guys. Thank you very much for the preview of Rumble OCR games by Rumble Fitness. There will be filming on the day, so you should be able to follow along either on Instagram. You can follow at Rumble Fitness _UK, or on Facebook, which is facebook.com/Rumble Fitness. As we've already said, the games have already been sold out. Such a fantastic event that the games have already been sold out. However, if you drop them a DM, either on Facebook or Instagram, you may be able to join on the waiting list and hopefully get a ticket, and you'll pass into what is a fantastic OCR event. So my thanks to Dave. Thanks to Chris. As always, you can follow along to Chris on Instagram at Obstacle Race Dude. If you haven't already, you should be following UK OCR along all the platforms at UK OCR. And if you like what you hear, please do consider supporting us by joining the Patreon, which is as little as £2 per month. This has been a bonus episode and a preview to the OCR games, and that's it for me, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye.
We all stars, win or lose, we don't play the part. And when the going getting tough, I get to going hard. You bring your best and you know I'ma tear them apart. We been in survival, rival, I ain't got no time for anyone who ain't put in the work that I do. You ain't heard about it, think I'm gonna remind you. I've been out here doing what I say, it's what defines you. This is our time, hands to the sky. You already know, I ain't gotta tell them why. Hands to the sky, this is our time. You already know, I ain't gotta tell them why.